Hello, everybody. Once again, thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of the Hugh Capital Podcast. I know you all are getting tired of me because I feel like I always have like a special story to share about someone on the show. But I think that should like tell y'all something. I bring really cool people on the show to educate you all, to inspire you all, because well, they did the same for me. So why wouldn't I be excited to have them on the show? So, before I introduce you all to who's here with us today, I have a story. I have to do it. I got to do it. So, today we have Martie Burris. And can I just say that I would have to say she might be like top 3 most impactful people in my life. And that's not a cap. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why it matters before y'all think I'm capping. Remember, my background is pre-med. The goal was to be a physician. I wanted to be a doctor. Then I realized, oh shoot, no, healthcare is more than being a clinical practitioner. I can be a business person, a tech professional. But when I knew that, I still didn't know what the role was going to be when I left medicine. I did grad school, still a little unsure, but towards the last year of grad school, I realized this thing called product management. Now, even though I love the idea of product management, I still knew I wanted to be in healthcare, but I didn't know who I should be speaking to maneuver this space of one, breaking into product, and two, breaking into the business of healthcare. So, why is she top 3? Because honestly, there are people in this world who can just break into things on their own and just do a couple of Google searches and figure it out. And then the reality is, other people kind of need some guidance. And I can be very transparent and say that sometimes I feel like for certain things that I'm trying to embark on, I need some structured guidance to get that done. And because of Martie's program, IPMA, Inclusive Product Management Accelerator, she is the reason that I can speak to you all as an associate product manager. And that's why she's so important, because career development is very important to me. I had my own community called Millennium Vision where I was helping people break in and try different things in new industries, but it wasn't specific to product, which was something I needed. And she did that for me by creating an organization that helps people transition from other careers, even outside of tech, to break into product. And that's why she's top 3. And that's why I'm not capping.
Hey.
You get me? Smile. First of all, do you see that teeth? You see how white that is? That look good. But that's the reason why Martie is top 3. Martie, I can confidently say that I'm not the only person that feels this way. You have been exposed to, I think we can confidently say, hundreds of people, over 100 people, whatever the number is. You have
Yeah.
hundreds, literally hundreds. Like, you have made people feel something within themselves in terms of what they are capable of achieving, and being able to say that you cultivated a program that just really helps people feel empowered to go for what they really want. But I'm getting a little extra here because I'm really in my bag about this, because you mean that much to me.
Thank
So I'm
you.
going to shut up and I'm going to let Martie introduce herself to you all, because I will drag it. I'm done.
There's nothing else I can say. I didn't even know you felt these things, Juju. So I
I know.
appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But yeah, what's up, everybody? I'm Martie. I am a senior director of product. I work at a big company that rhymes with Mail Morse. I work for the nice mark of the two. And outside of my 9 to 5, I think my calling in life is to help people see themselves at their highest self. And I do that in the lens of careers and showing people that there's so much more that you're qualified to do, that you're able to do. And I stay in my lane, right? I know product really well, so I'm not somebody who helps people get into tech. I haven't helped somebody, even though I've done that. I'm much more focused on helping people specifically getting to product within tech. And so I started a kind of small grassroots thing called Voting Chair that became what is now known as Inclusive Product Management Accelerator through the University of Washington's Foster School of Business. It's a free program, and it's not free as in you pay me $100 and I give it to you at the end. It's free $99. I never charged her a dime to be a part of this program. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, maybe at another time, why I chose to do that. But the goal is just to help people and to be the change I wanted to see in the community. It's one thing to talk about, it's another thing to be about it. And so that is how Folding Chair began, and ultimately IPMA.
I love that. And I want to highlight something, right? I want to remind you all the fact that, once again, she just mentioned that she is not charging people for this program. But we're also talking about the fact that someone like Martie created a free program for people like myself, where I literally landed a job that slightly more than doubled my salary. So
Mhm.
imagine doing this program for free, and the outcome is obviously like listening, being educated, but doing the work necessary also on my end to be able to achieve this goal, which was breaking into products, but even surprisingly doubling my salary. That's the outcome.
And
And
that's the check you can cash for the rest of your career. Product is a job that's not going away. Every industry requires it. It is a lucrative, high paying job no matter where you work. And you can always get that money for the rest of forever. Your kids see that money. That's generational wealth. I can't put money in your pocket, but I can show you how to go get it. And so that's what I did.
And to be honest, I promise y'all, she said something almost exactly like this at the beginning of the program. And obviously, she wasn't lying because, well, we did that.
We have a star pupil, okay?
And the cool thing about that as well, Martie, that I want to also address before we get into the real chunk of the interview is when you create something that is so accessible for people to improve the quality of their lives, both career-wise, financially, etc., I think it also reminds them why paying it forward and still giving back and doing things that
Mhm.
are technically free, but it's really a matter of doing it out of the kindness of your heart and seeing other people benefit from it. Like, that's why what you do is so important, because if I ever felt like I'm on my high horse and I'm too big to help somebody out, how can I forget the free community of people who are literally senior PMs, right? Senior PMs, directors, etc. They were giving their time to Martie to make my dreams come true. And I think that I'm too big to help somebody writing me either from the
Mhm.
program or on LinkedIn. Doesn't sound right. So had to highlight that.
Yeah, I can get into that a little bit too, because it's something that when I was I was trying to be what I needed when I was on the other side of things. And even before I was product, but I had that interaction so many times where I would meet people that I absolutely admired their career journey. And they'd even put themselves out there and tote themselves as people that really help. And then when I reached out to them, I couldn't get any help.
Yeah.
Like and it's one thing to like cold DM somebody you've never met and all that. And I respond to some of those too, not always, but sometimes when
Yeah.
I feel like I can do something.
Yep.
It's another thing to meet somebody, feel like you connected, you're excited, like I found that person I think that can help me, and then hit that door shut in your face. And so there's that. And I think the other thing is too, and this could be a whole subject in itself, is I don't believe in charging people access to the things that you got for free. Who am I to get on the other side of the door and then charge you to get in the same door I walked into? So if I can help, I'm going to help. And it's like I don't charge, the fellows that come in, but I make money in other ways, right? And so the creativity of my business model allows me to do that, and to make money without ever having to charge the people that I was trying to help. We're
That's
gonna
gonna be
talk
part of
about
the
it.
conversation. We're gonna talk about that
We're
once
gonna talk
again,
about
right?
it.
Because the business model behind having a community-based business is very important. So we're
Mhm.
gonna get into that. But before we do, my final question, just about you, really quickly, Martie, is where you from?
Okay, so I am from a little teeny tiny town. A lot of people don't know this. A little teeny tiny town, actually in southern Wisconsin. So little town, Beloit. I got there. My little city, B City. Um, but that's my little town. I guess about an hour from Chicago. And that's where I grew up. After that, I lived all over the Midwest, a little bit in the South, and then I came out to California back 6 years ago. So 2016, I came out to California, and I've been here since in the Bay Area. And this is where I call home.
And is it safe to assume that you went to Cali for work?
I went to California for work. So this was definitely a work move, and I stay here because I work here. And there's not really a better place to make software than Silicon Valley. So I know being remote is lit, but being remote in Silicon Valley
It's
makes a
different.
difference.
I like that. And I have a question. If you could bring this energy of Silicon Valley and the work that you do in software to like another city and state, what would it be? Or would it only be where it is now?
No, if it was so, there's where it's moved and where I think it should have moved. So
Okay.
where the tech has moved to is pretty much Austin and Miami. Those are your up and coming tech hubs. Where I would have liked to see some of the hubs move and grow is Detroit and Atlanta. So Atlanta's starting to get it. Detroit's starting to get it. But the difference is just because tech companies are setting up shop, that's different than putting R&D in those cities.
Yeah.
R&D is a lot more money, right? So product management sits in the R&D department. And I would like to see R&D specifically start to spring up in Detroit and spring up in Atlanta. The only company I know that does R&D out of Detroit is StockX. And StockX is pretty dope. Atlanta, it's in pockets. But that is one of the things that I'd like to see a little bit more.
I like that. Well, I appreciate that. But what I want to do before we get into the chunk of community is just understanding your background a little bit. The reason why I want to do that is because for everybody listening, there is an audience that are trying to grow into becoming better professionals, climb the corporate ladder, etc. And I want to help them understand the power behind being a career transitioner. And to my recollection, you were not always in product. You had a title called resource manager.
And before that, I was in finance. It's not even on LinkedIn.
Like, how does Martie go from finance to resource management and then to product? What does that even look like?
Yeah, so I was in finance. The year was 2008. I think that's enough right there.
That said everything. And to be honest, you know what? I hate to have to do this, but there's probably someone listening right now who doesn't actually know what that means. And what she's honestly referring to is the big recession that took place in 2008.
Yes. Yeah. So in 2008, I worked at Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch at back then was what Morgan Stanley is today in terms of breadth of things, right? And so I was working there. It got bought by Bank of America my first day of work. And I seen a lot of the ugly sides of corporate America. I also realized in my time, I actually don't want to do finance. And so that was a really nice little quick lesson. So kept going, finished school because I was actually not graduating from college yet when I was doing that, finished school, and then started working at Hewlett Packard as a tech consultant. It was not what I expected. I thought I was getting into wear cute suits. I'm going to come in. Here's my business plan. No, that's McKinsey. That's Deloitte. That's Accenture. I was a tech consultant, meaning I was basically an engineer for hire. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. However, it gave me the technical foundation I needed to now create software. So being a yes person in my career, some early career advice I got was to say yes to everything. It gets to a point where we got to start saying no, because I'm in, Shonda Rhimes had the year of yes, I'm all right, the year of no. You get to a point where you need to start saying no and get very specific about what you want. But early career, first decade, be a yes person, right? So I did that. Part of the being a yes person is opportunity, or chaos creates opportunity. So for those of y'all who are at companies right now who are experiencing layoffs, or you probably will, honestly, in the next year experience layoffs, because that's just the nature where we're at, chaos creates opportunity. We were going through the same thing, doing a lot of layoffs because of the climate and all of that. And my company was splitting into two aspects. This is something else that happens a lot during recessions and down periods, right? That created a lot of opportunities. So I tried resource management. Resource management is the business side of consulting. So that's determining new contracts. I learned about contracts. I learned about how to structure deals. And then the other thing I learned about was putting butts in seats, right? So I got a front page or a front, door view to talent management and the business behind consulting in terms of like how we determine what consultants go where, how do we figure out contracts, how do we respond to contract requests, all these things, right? Really offshoot from doing technical consulting and literally like doing full like migrations and integrations and all that, right? That's where my first PM job comes in. Company reaches out to me and it's like, yo, you have a really, really unique background, and you've been a resource manager, but you've also done a very technical job. We're trying to build software for the consulting world to make it easier to staff consultants and basically take what you do for a living and do that with software. So there's software that does that and it doesn't have to be, because it was a pretty manual job, right? I'm like, say more. And then, they're like, yeah, you're going to be a product manager. I'm like, I don't know what that is. You fake the funk of the phone. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be a product manager. Google, YouTube. What the heck is this? I had no idea what product management was. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I watched a couple YouTube videos on how to do, because they're like, you're going to have to do a case study interview. I'm like, what the fuck is a case study interview? YouTube, I watch a couple videos and I go in and I do it. Now, in hindsight, when I look back at that, I'm proud of younger me. Like, yes, you did that, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Right.
But I understand why I got hired, because now 7 years in a product, and I look back at that, I had a natural God-given talent to do what I was doing. That was the job I had described to my manager. I was like, I like doing the business stuff on resource management, and I like the engineering part, even though I don't like the engineering part. Is there a job that's in the middle where I can do some more business stuff, but still be a little closer to the technology aspect and all that? And I didn't really know what I was describing. Then when I got in the product, I realized I found what I was good at. I had a natural knack for it, and landed my first job. I was the first Black person that company had ever hired in product, and everybody made sure I knew it. But and I moved out to the Bay, and I started what became a really amazing life journey and big life change.
I love that so much. And I was gonna wait till later for you to address this, but just to wrap up the whole personal trajectory part of it, I'll never forget when you shared this story with the IPMA community about when you kind of felt like you were failing at a stage in your PM career. Can you just like share that story about what failure felt like?
Well, it happens so often, I'm not even sure which story I told you.
This is specifically about the one where you had a conversation with your boss and they had to question something.
Yes, my first manager. So it's kind of funny now, right? It's definitely one of those that I feel like Mike Jones a lot. Like back then, it didn't want me, now I'm hot. Y'all know how I go. Or maybe y'all don't, because some of y'all didn't know about 2008.
You get me?
Oh, back then it didn't want me. Now I'm hot. They all own me, right? And so that's a kind of a trend in my career in general, right? I could say that about tech in general. When I was trying to get into tech at the beginning, I interviewed with every major tech company. Nobody wanted me. Now they stay in my DMs, and I'm happy. I'm happy where I'm at. Leave me alone right now, But it's kind of funny to have gone from please, 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 just give me an interview to I'm not interested right now. And the privilege there is to say that, right? Like there's a lot in there too, right? We could go on a long time with this. But the story, my first manager told me to consider something else. I felt like I was failing at PM. He was like, I don't know if this is a career for you. He refused to promote me. He was always, always, always riding me and always making me feel like I didn't know what I was doing. And at that time in my life, I would say, and this is something that some people get much further into their career before they realize this, is my career was too tightly connected to my self-worth and my value. And so to have my manager telling me I wasn't doing great at my job, even though I now know in hindsight, he hadn't fucked up. But at the time, I believed him, right? Now, I then later learned about some politicky things that had happened that made him give me that feedback. And it wasn't actually a reflection of my job. It was more of a reflection of people adjusting to how I'm going to take instruction from a Black woman and never having had done that before and everything that comes with that, right? But to hear that, it hit me here because I'm like, I'm not hearing you're not performing at your job. I'm hearing you suck. You are not performing. You are not enough. And that was a lot, right, to deal with. And so two things will happen when you get feedback like that. You can take stuff like that and let it sink you to the pits of hell and be depressed and quit your job and try to go find something else in an entirely different career field, or you can say, fuck you, I think I know better. And that's exactly what I did, because one of the things that I'd done is I started creating community outside of work, and I started creating community at work outside of my org. And when I would look at other people, I'm like, they're struggling on stuff that comes naturally to me. When I would talk to my friends who worked at other companies, right? Facebook, well, when it was Meta, now Facebook, right? Pinterest, startups. What was the other big one that, Google, all the different ones, right? And we had a community, which is now BPM, right? So this is when BPM was literally 12 of us in an apartment complex, right? When it was just that, and I'm talking to them, I felt on par with them. And these are all my friends. The other thing is I didn't have an MBA. And at that time, you had to have an MBA to be in products. I was also one of the first product people that had been hired, if not the first person in my company had hired that did not have an MBA, right? And everyone that I knew had one as well. And so to go through that entire process, it was a lot. But having a hunch like, no, I think he's wrong, was a huge change for me, right? Because the other thing I started doing is folding chair started during that time as well. And in teaching people, I realized how good at my job I was, because I was helping people get jobs. Some of the first people I helped landed major jobs, right? First people I helped were landing jobs at Facebook at a time where landing the Facebook PM job was hard. They've made it easier. They actually made the interview process easier in the years since it started. But if, 7, 8 years ago, whew, it was like SAT, like it was not easy. You had to be able to code, you had to be able to review data. The Facebook interview, you used to have to do a coding interview if you're a PM. They don't require that anymore. They got rid of it probably maybe 4 years ago,
Wow.
5 years ago now. But you used to have to code to pass the Facebook interview, right? It was not a joke, right? And so I was helping people get these jobs. I'm like, if I can help them get these jobs at these big companies, maybe I'm better at my job than I realized. So in a way, building community and building Folding Chair actually helped build my own confidence and my own abilities to do the work that I do now.
I love that. And to be honest, this is why I love when you speak because, well, you took it in the right direction because that's exactly what I was going to address next is your entry into this community-based entrepreneurial world, right? And to your recollection, like you just mentioned, Folding Chair was like that entry. And
Mhm.
before I get into the chunk of what you did through Folding Chair, I want to speak about what made you feel like I should turn this idea into something accessible to people.
The first person I mentored. So the first person I mentored, I met at this meetup, again, community, right?
Mhm.
And she came up to me like, "You're the first Black woman I met." And at the time, I had just moved to California. So people were doing that to me a lot. And I'm like, why do people keep doing that? Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
And she was a student. She was a graduating senior at Stanford. And I'm like, and I told her flat out, you don't need me to help you. You have Stanford on your resume. If you tell people that, that should get the job. You
Yeah.
don't need me. But she asked me to mentor her, and she's the first person I helped get a job. And she ended up going, I think, Urban Outfitters as a product manager, right? Before she moves, because she has to move across the country to do this, she comes back and she mentors me back, and she says, you should help more people. I've reached out to so many people to try to help me, and no one's helped me like you have. Try to do some more people. And so I just went on LinkedIn and said, anybody who wants free career coaching, let me know. And I was inundated with people who needed help. And that was really how it all started. Somebody told me that, and that's why it's so important to have that gratitude moment with people when they do help you, because you really don't know how it's going to impact them. Had she never told me that, I would have never started Folding Chair. I would have been living in what my manager told me, which is I ain't that good at my job and all that. But I'm like, well, but I just helped her. Maybe, I don't know, right? And I'm in this weird place. And in doing this work, I realized just how good at my job that I actually was.
I love that you mentioned that you actually put yourself out there. Like you made a post and blatantly told people, I am giving you free coaching versus just relying on someone maybe posting a success story about like working with you and
Mhm.
that attracting people for you to help. I like that you said, hey, listen, I'm telling you guys, it's me. Come join me. I got your
I
back.
liked being behind the scenes. When I first started helping people, I would tell them, don't tell anybody.
No, that
Between
sounds
me and
like
you know what I mean? Because I didn't know how it was going to happen or how
right,
what could happen, and so I would just help people. Kind of like I was like on a need to know basis. I never put up a website, never had to.
right.
The word of mouth was enough for me to always be busy, and it just started being what I was good at. But also in helping people learn how to get in and perfect interviews and all of that, I also became like this person too that was like recognized as kind of like, now in tech, right? You got Blind, you got Levels FY, you got Candor, you got all these different things to know about like pay and all that. That stuff didn't exist 6, 7 years ago. Definitely didn't exist a decade ago. And so I'm like this walking glass door. That was where you had to get information, right? I was walking glass door of like all these salaries and all of that to help people. And the other thing is I had all the interview questions up here too.
Yeah.
I knew everyone's interviews. They would, and one of the things that they would give me as a thank you is here's the questions they asked me, right? I use that to prep the next person.
Good. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask you, like, can you give us like a walkthrough of what it looked like mentoring someone? Like, what are you offering? What's your
Yeah.
service? Yeah.
So my guarantee is I could get you a job. I
Okay.
can get you a job at whatever company you want to work at as long as it's in product. And they'd be like, girl, I don't care what your background is, I can help you pass the interview. And so what I would focus on is only passing the interview. And I would work, and my offer was I'll work with you until you pass. So even if you go up the first time you don't get it, I'll work with you until you pass. As long as you want to work with me, I'll work with you. I don't do weekends, and I'm not going to work with you on a Sunday unless your interview's on Monday. Those were the rules, and that was it. And we just kept going. People just kept coming, and it was like I never got a break. Usually I could do in a month time. I could do probably 3 to 5 people. Sometimes when I was really in like low times at work, I could do, 6, 7 plus. And I would help them, especially if there were people going up for the same company. I could have a lot of people
Mhm.
at one time. I'm like, I'm going to
Yeah.
just teach y'all at once, right? Sometimes I
Yeah.
would do like dual sessions where I'd have 2 people in and I'm like, y'all both need to learn the same information. You also need to make a friend. So here's somebody who's going through this so y'all can talk when I'm not around. Take pressure off myself. As I got more senior in my own career, and also as word of mouth spread a little too quickly,
Mhm.
I started scaling it down to I'm only helping people if you already have an interview.
Yeah.
And so I had to, so if you already had an interview scheduled, I would have people put their interview out 2 weeks. And I could tell you in your first session, whether or not you would get a job at the end. And I would also be able to tell you how long it would take with a couple weeks of accuracy. Like I
Yeah.
could talk to you and be like, it's going to take you 2 months to get a job because we got to learn this. You got to learn this. You have to close these gaps in your resume, and then we have to do this. And
No.
other people, I'd be like, yeah, you should probably get your first job in the next like 6 weeks. We can start, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I would go after it.
And I'm really grateful that you walked us through all of that. And I want to remind everybody, once again, this is someone who, once again, is growing in their product career. This person
Mhm.
is offering free coaching opportunities to people who are trying to break into product and land these interviews and actually win at getting the job right after the interviews. But at the same time, having that level of self-awareness to realize, I like doing this, but a lot of people need me, and I'm only one person. So, Martie, when did you realize, well, the answer might just be IPMA?
So it was a long battle, right? I think I knew after a year, and most of the people who came through my program be like, "How can I help you? Can I help you scale this? You need to help more people, Martie. You need to." And so the big thing was everyone was trying to get me to turn it into a course. Turn it into a course. You could charge people. You can make so much money. For context, before Folding Chair became IPMA, we helped 10.2 million in salaries created. There are people who do what I do, and they charge $1,000 a pop. If I did that, I would have probably, you know what I mean? I would have. I don't know if I would have hit a million, but I would have hit,
Some up there.
I would have hit something. But there were people who charged $1,000 a pop for like 3 or 4 sessions. People were getting, upwards of, I would do sometimes 2 or 3 sessions with a single person in a week, especially depending on when their interview was and how ready they were not, right?
Right.
And so it was that, but I was like, I just don't feel right charging people. It don't feel right. I can't.
Right.
And then there was a lot of iterations, right? And there was, maybe have people who done it and find more people to coach. Well, the issue with that was I had all this stuff up here.
Yeah.
And part of it was my secret sauce was me.
Yeah.
Right. It's that way I taught and the way that I explain things and the things that I could hear someone say and that would catch my attention, but not somebody else. And I'm like, and the time it takes to train somebody to be as good as me on this, I will have missed so many opportunities to help more people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have the aptitude to do it. Plus, who do I trust with this, right?
Yeah.
Because who I gave that information to also affected it. One of the things that I was really big on was keeping the information in the community because it was giving, people of color a leg up. If I put this out on a YouTube video, anyone can watch it.
Yeah.
Now this becomes public knowledge and it's no longer something that helps the people who need it most.
I love
And
that.
so it was a lot of iterations. Eventually, when I wasn't trying or looking, I spoke it, I manifested it, honestly, spoke it into existence. I put on LinkedIn that year, I think it was it 2020? I put on LinkedIn and I said, this is a year I'm going to grow Folding Chair, the biggest it's ever been, and I'm going to help the most people I ever helped. And that's what I said. And I got all these likes and all this stuff. But I actually had no plan of how to do that. That's just what I wanted to put into the ether. That's what I wanted.
Yep.
About a month and a half later, I meet Jeff, who is my co-founder at UW. He's asking me to come speak at a conference. And in my speaker prep, I'm talking about what I do with Folding Chair. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. We actually want to do something like that at the university. Have you ever considered academia, what it would mean? And he was like, what are the things you're trying to solve for? I'm like, I need to help more than one person, at a time, right? I need to be able to help people at scale. And I don't want to charge them. I'm telling a public university, I don't want to charge for education.
Yeah.
And they said,
what?
That ain't a problem. That's fine.
Nice.
So we were able to start to build the program up. We started getting donations and funding, and that is how IPMA came to be.
I love that so much. And I mean, Obviously for me, I mean, I'm familiar with the background of this, but I'm just even more excited that I know now that people who are watching this are learning about this story for two reasons.
Mhm.
One, for the professional who just wants to climb the corporate ladder and do what you're doing and become who you are. Once again, senior director of product management. Big deal. But then secondary to that is the concept of being this community-based entrepreneur and realizing that you have a passion for making sure that people are achieving better career outcomes, but on top of that, you want them to do that without having to pay to become that. What does that look like? At first, it was folding chair. Then you met Jeff when you were speaking on a panel to ultimately realizing, hey, Jeff, Martie, oh snap, we can work together and bring life to
Mhm.
something that is scalable. And you mentioned a keyword, donations and funding. So let's talk about the business model. How
Yes,
does IPMA get to do this work for people for free?
really easily. I charge the corporations who want to hire the people. So that's no different than how LinkedIn makes money, right? LinkedIn doesn't charge you for looking for a job, applying for a job, for using their website. They charge the companies who want access to that community. And so that's where I charge. I charge for access to the community. If you want to get highly skilled, highly trained PMs that are mid career, because that's the other thing. Early career folks, they don't want to pay for that because most companies already have that. So I don't actually let early career people into the program. Mid-career people who've got a lot of experience, that experience can supplement what an MBA used to be years ago. And with that change of not requiring MBAs, right, that allowed for more people who had my experience, right, a functional on the job experience that they can translate into product, we did that. So that is essentially how it all works. Um, the university also serves as a credibility, right? It's already an established nonprofit. It's already has a mechanism for accepting money. And so I became an employee of the university. They pay them, and I I used to take I don't take money anymore from the program.
Oh,
I'd rather hire people. So what we did was I could take a salary or I could hire more people so I could do less. There's a
mm,
clear win here because I
yeah,
got to a point where my time became more valuable than the money I was making. And so I pay the people who help in the program more than I ever made with it. But it's worthwhile because then it frees me back up.
right.
Then here's the other places I get paid: speaking opportunities. Um, every 3 months, there's 100 people who have something positive to say about me and typically go on LinkedIn and say that, which creates more speaking opportunities to get paid, more offshoot things to get paid for. Um, and it creates job opportunities as well, opportunities at my current company and externally.
Yep.
And so it's like, and so I'm getting more money in my day job because of the work that I'm doing outside. Um, and so between all of those different things, that's pretty much how it works. Those companies are donating, and as a result, they have a whole packet of stuff that they get as being sponsors. But that is it. And those 100 people go to 100 different companies, right? And then they get their companies to come back to who donate either money, time, services, whatever. And that is kind of how we keep the wheel going.
That was a fantastic answer. And I do want to highlight something for everybody listening that maybe kind of went over your head is this concept of time basically being the most valuable asset you have in your life, right? Like I think a lot of times, a lot of us we associate, okay, I have a business. I got to pocket a whole bunch of money. I mean, whatever happens with everybody else, that's their business. I got to have mine. Eh, but think about it. The more money you put in your pocket, the less people that you can employ to alleviate yourself from the day-to-day tasks that are affiliated with that. But when you get your time back because you are using your resources to employ people, to put them in positions where if they were not there, you would have to do it yourself. Well, when do you get the time to think about the next big step of the organization, of the business, right? Like
Mhm.
time is so valuable because, well, time gives you more time to think. And thinking is
More
good.
time.
You get me? It's good for the
More
business.
time to think and to be yourself, right? When you are doing 60, 70 hours of work, product is not the easy route, right? This is a hard job that requires work. You know what
Yep.
I mean? There are 80, when we were building the program out, there were weeks where I was smacking 75 hours right there in the face, right? But I did those things because I had to. And I've always been that person, right? I've worked 2 jobs as long as I can remember. But when it wasn't that, and I was trying to get out of student loan debt, I had a tech job and I was a waitress at night. I did what I had to do to get where I wanted to go. And so that hard work finally paid off. And then it's created other avenues for me to get paid. Sure, I can get paid off of IPMA, but I also now have 3 other streams of income I can get because I've done this work, right? Because I can monetize my own content. I can do talks that I can make money on and then put them on YouTube so they can make money. There's a lot of avenues for that. And so that became something that was much more important.
I love that. And that was fantastic. And what I also want to follow up with there is you highlighted the fact that you are getting companies to pay into access to this talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you saying in a meeting to convince them that you are the organization that they need to work with?
So I think my career gives me credibility when I am talking to them. Every pitch is slightly different. And then I take a lot of the things that I learned from my early days in consulting, but also stuff you learn in product, right? When you are talking to customers, right? I'm on the enterprise side, where I've been on the enterprise, I'm on consumer right now. But on the enterprise side, you typically will talk to customers that are representative of a set. So I'll talk to customers and figure out what they want, right? At the end of the day, these companies have become our customer in a sense. And everything wants something different. We're trying to diversify our workforce. We're trying to grow our workforce by X amount. We're trying to skill up our workforce, whatever the case may be, right? Everyone's got different things. So that need analysis that we do at the beginning, and I'm just having a conversation, is that. Then I tailor my pitch to that. I don't even use a deck half the time. I have one always queued up because depending on who I'm dealing with, they kind of want to see that. I'm like, oh, hold on, I got some slides. Let me just jump into those, right? But I go conversation first and I just talk to them and I'm like, okay, so knowing what you need and knowing what I have in this community, I think there's a place to meet your needs. One of the telltale differences also between folding chair and IPMA is folding chair focused on Black and Brown folks specifically, or Black and Latino folks. They say Brown and that can mean something else. Black and Latino. When I IPMA, one of the rules that came with doing it at the university is I cannot segment based on race. I had to focus on people who were interested in building inclusive products, but I use that with the companies. So I said, this is an opportunity to redefine what diversity looks like. Diversity can mean hiring people who are a reflection of the ones who do the product. It also can mean people who are interested in seeing things go forward and who are inclusivity focused, and being able to share that and to talk to companies about that. Usually, if the diversity part doesn't ring their bell, the inclusivity focus does. And then the third part is the fact that they are learning best practices from every major tech company, right? Our bench of teachers represent the entire FANG community, plus, very popular startups. Our drop-in speakers, our fireside chats are coming from the biggest companies in the world, and they're learning the best practices of all these different companies. So not only are you getting somebody who's middle career, so they're a little just more ready, right, in terms of to the work, they're also been trained. So come day one, your window's cut in half because they've already been trained. You can look at our syllabus, you can look at whatever training I'm on and how we're teaching them. You want to learn more. But it's the same pitch that a university would use if they're trying to get a company to use them for recruiting, right? It's a very similar pitch, but having done so many odd jobs, just being a yes person early in my career allowed for that to be something that I learned, and now I can use as part of how I pitch and get, right? Also the resource management, learning the business side of how we got companies to invest in our companies and choose our resources. No different than the pitches that I'm doing now and trying to get companies to choose let us be the resource for you for hiring all your needs in the future. And it's a model that's been working.
I love it. And honestly, if y'all were not taking notes during that entire answer, yeah, definitely rewind and give it another listen and make sure you're paying attention, especially because there was something that Martie said that was very important. Every conversation does not look the same. You definitely need to acknowledge who you're going to end up in the room with, what that company is about, what they're looking for, etc., and curate the conversation, whether it's a deck, talk, verbal, whatever you want to call it, curate it to that. And I think that was the most important thing that you said, not because everything else wasn't important, but it's like the umbrella statement, like curation, know who you're speaking to, and then you do it ABCDE way. That was really great.
No, I was just going to say, I think know the needs of that company and also find the right player. Sometimes it can take a few of those meetings to find the decision maker. But the thing is, you want to go to the right player. So for me, that's always typically somebody head of talent or head of recruiting. That's who I want to meet with.
Yep.
It's typically not other product people, but the product people make the introduction for me. And one of the things that my community does for me is every time they go post on LinkedIn, it's like a free ad. We don't have to pay for marketing. And so that gets more companies interested in that. And every time somebody gets placed, that's an opportunity. That's basically lead gen for me to say, hey, you just hired somebody who came through our program, whether you realize it or not. If you want to hire more people, if you like that person, it's typically a good time to come about 3 months after that person's been in. If you like that person, and you want to hire more people like that, you've got a whole community of ones that are ready. That's it.
Point blank, period, poo. Had to throw that in there. Well, Martie, that was great. And before I ask you the closing question, there is one more thing I want to highlight. I want to know, in terms of like trends in tech, how are you using the trends that you are seeing now to guide you in preparation of the fellows? Like, what's happening, and how are you using that information to improve the program?
Yeah, so there's a few different things, right? So I learn from cohort to cohort to cohort. I'm always taking information back from them. And so there's some things that I'm learning, right? And that I'm learning through our community, but then also just macro trends that I'm finding, right? Right now, tech has gone from being a free for all, from for a couple of years early, to now being that companies are much more specific about the talent they're trying to hire. It's going to be harder for like boot camp grads, accelerator grads, all these people that are coming with these non-traditional backgrounds to get the job, because that's just the standard and where we are. So I'm taking some learnings from workforce development programs. How are you guaranteeing the job for people? And one of those ways is by having companies commit to a headcount number with you. Like, send me your check, but also tell me how many people that you want, right? Yeah. And that starts to guarantee at least that we can pipe in people into those roles. The other thing that I'm learning as well through the program is also just constantly restructuring content. One of the things that I've seen as a trend is there's one thing to get in a product, is another thing to stay in a product. And so one of the things that I started focusing on was, what does it look like 30, 60, 90 days? What are the things that you can be doing in the first 90 days that ensure that this is a career that you can always be in?
Yeah.
And so part of that is changing applications to focus on only people who want to stay in product as a career long-term. And then the second aspect of that is, what am I giving them at graduation and as alumni, so they continue to be good at their jobs for a long time, and they're good and they have support when you get in, right? When you get in, the first 6 months of product management is make or break. If you don't feel like you failed and you suck at your job in the first 6 months, odds are you're probably not doing a good job, actually, and people are lying to you. You feel like you're failing, you're in a wiggly place, that's a good thing. But also, what support can we provide in my program so you can get through those times smoothly and anticipate that? And so just doing some more work there.
I love that. Well, my closing question to you, Martie, is this question I ask everybody. There's one word that always changes in there, but I have a word that I think pertains to you. And my question for you is, what does the future of tech look like?
Ooh, I think there's so many things I can say. I think the future of tech is, and this is, I'm going to say it in regards to the career thing, the best technologists, the story is going to change. When it was boomers and people were older, you were good at your job because of how long you've been there, right? I know this technology stack better than anybody. I've been here for a decade. The story that Gen Z and millennials will tell is, I've been at 10 different companies, I've done this 10 different ways. Who knows it better than me, right? That is the shift that you're going to see because of job hopping's been more normalized with us, right? And it's really a career strategy, and also just how to stay top of the funnel with your skill set. You're going to have to go work at other companies, do different industries, try to solve different product problems. And at the end of that, you'll have figured out 10 ways to do that. And that is going to be the future really for tech workers, is going to be that. I think some other quick futuristic things. I don't think the metaverse will happen. I think the metaverse will happen, but Facebook won't be the company to do it. A lot of times it sucks being first to market. There's some benefits to being first to market, but one of the benefits to your competitors is they can see everywhere you failed. And then the second person typically is the one that truly succeeds. I can give lots of examples, but at the same time. And the third part of that is, I think the Apple car is real. I can't say why, but I think it's real.
Honestly speaking, I kind of think it is as well, but I probably will have to ping you on the side to figure out why you believe that. Sorry, y'all, I don't get that answer. I'm sorry. We ran out of time, but Listen, maybe if you ever join the program, maybe you might be able to ask Martie about that. Just
Yeah.
saying, just saying. Anywho, Martie, I'm so grateful for this interview. Honestly, you have went above and beyond in answering my questions. I think people learned a lot today. But it
Yeah.
doesn't end here, everybody. Once again, part 2 to the episode right after this one. Make sure you listen to it. We're not done.